9 things you should never give your kids when you retire. Hey there, friends. Let's have a serious talk. One that could change the way you think about your legacy and your retirement. Imagine this. You've spent decades working hard, building a life, saving, and planning for the future. Now you're finally reaching the golden years of retirement, a time to relax, enjoy, and maybe share some of what you've built with the ones you love most, your kids. But hold on for a second. What if I told you that some of the things you're planning to give them, whether it's money, possessions, or even expectations, could do more harm than good? Sounds shocking, doesn't it? But the truth is, not every gift is a blessing. Sometimes our good intentions can backfire in ways we don't see coming. You see, we all want to set our children up for success. We want to make their lives easier, smoother, and better. But here's the hard truth. If you're not careful about what you pass down and how you pass it down, you might unintentionally be setting them up for struggles instead of success. Financial burdens, emotional stress, family conflict, or even a loss of independence, they can all stem from well-meaning decisions that seemed right in the moment. So today, we're going to dive deep into this topic. We're going to talk about the 9 things you should never give to your children when you retire. And no, I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to help you make the best decisions for your family's future. Because your legacy is more than just stuff or money. It's about leaving behind something meaningful, something lasting, and something that truly empowers your kids to live their best lives. Now, I know this might feel a little uncomfortable. After all, we've been told that providing for our kids is one of the most important things we can do as parents. But what we're about to explore isn't about holding back or being selfish. It's about being thoughtful and strategic. It's about making choices that truly help, not hurt. Here's the deal. I'm not here to judge you, and I'm not here to tell you what to do. But I am here to offer some insights, share some stories, and maybe give you a new perspective on what it means to leave a legacy. By the end of this conversation, you'll have a clear understanding of the 9 things to avoid, plus some actionable steps you can take to protect your retirement and ensure your children are set up for success, not burdened by unintended consequences. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's talk. Because this is more than just financial planning or retirement advice. This is about building a future for your family that you can truly be proud of. Ready? Let's jump in. Number 1. Financial entitlements. All right, let's start with one of the most common mistakes. Passing down financial entitlements to your kids. Now, I get it. As parents, we want to provide for our children. It's natural to want to give them a head start in life. But here's the problem. When kids grow up expecting that money will always be there, it can lead to entitlement, dependency, and even a lack of ambition. Think about it for a second. If your children believe that they're guaranteed an inheritance or that you'll always be their financial safety net, what incentive do they have to work hard, make smart decisions, and create their own success? Giving them the expectation of wealth can actually rob them of the opportunity to develop their own skills and independence. Let me share a quick story. There's a wealthy retiree, we'll call him Jim, who spent his entire career building a successful business. Jim's kids grew up in a comfortable home, knowing that Dad was doing well financially. When Jim retired, he decided to tell his kids that they'd inherit the family fortune one day. But guess what happened? Instead of working hard to carve their own paths, Jim's kids became complacent. They didn't save. They didn't take their careers seriously, and they made poor financial decisions, assuming Dad would always bail them out. The result? By the time Jim passed away, his kids had little to no experience managing money, and they squandered their inheritance in just a few years. Jim's well-meaning generosity ended up doing more harm than good. So what's the takeaway here? It's not about being stingy or refusing to share your wealth. It's about being strategic. Instead of promising an inheritance or constantly bailing your kids out financially, focus on teaching them the value of hard work, budgeting, and investing. Help them build their own financial independence while you're still around to guide them. A good alternative is to be transparent about your plans. For example, let them know you're prioritizing your retirement savings to ensure you don't become a financial burden to them. Emphasize that your goal is to lead by example, showing them how to manage money wisely and live within their means. If you do decide to pass on wealth, consider setting it up in a way that requires responsibility, like a trust with clear conditions or milestones. Remember, financial entitlement doesn't just affect their bank accounts, it affects their mindset. Giving them the tools to build their own success is the greatest gift you can provide. Number 2, unfinished business. Let's move on to number 2, unfinished business. And no, I'm not just talking about that half-finished garden shed or the pile of old family photos sitting in the attic. I'm talking about financial, legal, and emotional loose ends that you leave for your kids to deal with after you retire. Or worse, after you're gone. Here's the thing. Leaving behind unresolved debts, unclear estate plans, or even lingering family conflicts can place a huge burden on your children. It's like handing them a ticking time bomb and saying, "Good luck figuring this out." Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you retire and decide to downsize. You sell your home, but you don't take the time to pay off an old tax lien from years ago. Or maybe you never updated your will, so there's confusion about who gets what when the time comes. These small oversights can create enormous stress for your children, not to mention costly legal battles. And it's not just about money. Unfinished business can also take the form of emotional baggage. Perhaps there's a long-standing family feud or unresolved tension that you never addressed. When you're gone, your children are left to navigate those dynamics on their own, often leading to fractured relationships. The good news is, this is entirely avoidable. Here's what you can do. 1. Get your financial house in order. Review your debts, taxes, and other obligations, and make a plan to settle them before retirement. If you need help, consult a financial advisor or estate planner. 2. Create or update your will. Make sure it's clear, fair, and up to date. Don't leave room for ambiguity. That's where family conflicts often arise. 3. Have those tough conversations. If there are unresolved issues in your family, now is the time to address them. It might be uncomfortable, but it's far better to have those conversations now than to leave your children to deal with the fallout later. Here's a practical tip. Consider writing a legacy letter alongside your will. This isn't a legal document. It's a personal message where you can share your wishes, values, and even apologies if necessary. It's a way to provide emotional closure and guidance for your family. At the end of the day, finishing your business before you retire isn't just a gift to yourself. It's a gift to your children. It spares them the stress, confusion, and heartache of dealing with loose ends, allowing them to focus on celebrating your legacy instead of untangling it. Stay tuned because we've got 7 more things to cover. And trust me, they're just as important as these first 2. Let's keep going. Number 3, a family business they don't want. Now this one might sting a little, especially if you've poured your heart and soul into building a family business. But here's the hard truth. Just because you're passionate about your business doesn't mean your kids are too. Passing down a business they don't want, don't understand, or don't care about can quickly become more of a burden than a blessing. Let me tell you about a man named Robert. He ran a successful family-owned bakery for over 30 years. To Robert, The bakery wasn't just a business. It was his life's work. He dreamed of passing it down to his 2 children so they could carry on the legacy. But here's the problem. Neither of his kids wanted to take over. One was a graphic designer with no interest in baking, and the other was building a career as an engineer. Still, Robert insisted they take the reins, and to avoid disappointing their dad, they reluctantly agreed. What happened next? The bakery started to falter. Without their dad's passion and experience, the business lost its edge. The siblings resented being tied to something they didn't love, and their relationship suffered as they clashed over how to manage it. Eventually, the bakery had to close, leaving both the family and the business in shambles. The lesson here is simple. Forcing a business onto your children, no matter how much it means to you, can cause more harm than good. It can strain their relationships, drain their time, and even derail their own dreams. So, what's the alternative? 1. Have an honest conversation. Sit down with your kids and talk openly about their feelings toward the business. Do they want to be involved? Are they passionate about continuing it? If the answer is no, accept it with grace. 2. Explore other options. If your kids aren't interested, consider selling the business to someone who shares your passion and vision. Or, you can hire a professional manager to take over day-to-day operations while keeping the business in the family. 3. Prepare your kids if they do want it. If one or more of your children are interested, start mentoring them early. Teach them the ins and outs of the business so they're ready to take the lead when the time comes. Remember, your family's legacy isn't just about the business itself, it's about the values, work ethic, and lessons you pass down. And sometimes, letting go of the business is the best way to preserve that legacy. Number 4. Unhealthy expectations or pressures. Let's talk about expectations, because as parents, we sometimes don't realize the weight we place on our kids' shoulders. Unintentionally, we can set them up to feel like they need to live out our dreams, follow our rules, or achieve goals that we've decided are important. This kind of pressure can stifle their independence, creativity, and happiness. Here's an example. A retired couple, Susan and Mark, had always envisioned their son, Alex, becoming a doctor. They encouraged him to pursue medicine from a young age, even though Alex was more interested in technology and coding. When they retired, they started talking about how proud they'd be to see him in a white coat and how they'd set aside money to make it happen. Feeling the weight of their expectations, Alex reluctantly went to med school. But here's what happened. Alex was miserable. He hated the classes, and his mental health started to decline. Eventually, he dropped out and went back to school for computer science, which was his real passion. While he finally found success in his own way, his relationship with his parents suffered because he felt they never truly supported his dreams. The takeaway? Pressuring your kids to meet your expectations, whether it's following a specific career path, living in a certain way, or even taking over family traditions, can lead to resentment, unhappiness, and strained relationships. Here's what you can do instead. 1. Encourage exploration. Let your kids find their own path, even if it's different from what you envisioned. Their dreams are just as valid as yours, and they'll be happier pursuing a life they're passionate about. 2. Offer support, not control. Be there to guide and mentor them, but let them make their own decisions. Support their choices, even if you don't fully understand them. 3. Celebrate their uniqueness. Every child is different. Embrace their individuality and recognize that their definition of success might not look like yours. And that's okay. At the end of the day, your role as a parent is to equip your kids with the tools, confidence, and freedom to create a life that's meaningful to them. By letting go of unhealthy expectations, you give them the space to thrive and grow into their best selves. And trust me, their happiness and independence will be the best legacy you could ever leave behind. Stay tuned because there's more to cover, and the next points will help you avoid even bigger pitfalls as you plan your retirement and your family's future. Number 5. Family feuds over inheritance. Let's face it, money can bring out the best in people, but it can also bring out the worst. One of the most heartbreaking things that can happen after you retire, or after you're gone, is watching your children and loved ones fall into bitter disputes over what you leave behind. Family feuds over inheritance are more common than you might think, and they can destroy relationships that took a lifetime to build. Here's the thing. You might think, "Oh, my kids would never fight over money or possessions." But when emotions are high, misunderstandings happen, and old sibling rivalries resurface. Even the closest families can find themselves at odds. And the worst part, these disputes often come from a lack of clarity or fairness in the way inheritances are planned or communicated. Take a woman named Carol, for example. Carol had 3 kids, and when she retired, she decided to leave the family home to her eldest son, since he had the closest emotional attachment to it. However, she didn't clearly explain this decision to her other 2 children, nor did she update her will to reflect it. When Carol passed away, her other kids felt blindsided and betrayed. They thought the eldest son manipulated her into giving him the house. What followed was years of legal battles and strained relationships, with Carol's memory overshadowed by the family's resentment and anger. So, how can you avoid a situation like this? Here's what you need to do. 1. Make your wishes crystal clear. Don't assume your children know what you want. Spell it out in your will and make sure it's legally sound. Work with an attorney or estate planner to ensure there's no room for ambiguity. 2. Be fair or explain your reasoning. Fairness doesn't always mean splitting everything equally, but if you decide to divide your assets unequally, explain your reasoning to your children ahead of time. This can help avoid surprises and resentment later. 3. Have an open conversation. Sit down with your family while you're still healthy and explain your plans. This gives everyone a chance to ask questions, voice concerns, and understand your intentions. Open communication is the best way to prevent misunderstandings. Here's an extra tip. Consider leaving a small, separate fund specifically for handling disputes or unexpected situations. This can help ease tensions and provide a cushion for resolving disagreements without dipping into the main estate. Remember, your goal isn't just to divide your assets. It's to preserve the love and unity in your family. With clear planning and communication, you can avoid unnecessary drama and leave a legacy that truly honors your values and relationships. Number 6. Sentimental items without context. Let's talk about those sentimental items, the family heirlooms, keepsakes, and treasures that carry so much meaning for you. You might have a grandfather's watch, your mother's wedding ring, or a box of old letters you've saved for decades. These items are priceless to you. But here's the thing. Without proper context, they might not mean much to your children. Worse, they could end up feeling more like clutter than cherished memories. Think about it. If you simply hand over a box of keepsakes without explaining the stories behind them, your kids might not understand their significance. That old watch might just look like a broken trinket, or that collection of photo albums could be tossed aside as just old pictures. Without the emotional connection, the value of these items can be lost, and so can the stories of your family's history. Let me share a story. There was a man named Frank who left his son a dusty old violin when he passed away. The son, not knowing its significance, put it in storage. Years later, while going through the attic, he learned from a neighbor that the violin had belonged to Frank's great-grandfather, who played it while immigrating to the U.S. during the early 1900s. Suddenly, the violin wasn't just an object, it was a piece of the family's legacy. Unfortunately, by then, it had been damaged beyond repair due to neglect. So, how do you make sure your sentimental items retain their meaning? Here's how. 1. Share the stories. Take the time to explain why each item is important, who it belonged to, and what it represents. Write down the stories if you can. A journal or recorded video can be a great way to preserve this history for future generations. 2. Be selective. Don't feel like you have to pass down everything. Choose the items that truly matter and have significance. Too many items can overwhelm your kids and dilute the emotional value of the ones that are most important. 3. Ask your kids what they want. Sometimes, you'll be surprised by what resonates with them. One child might want the wedding ring, while another cherishes the photo albums. Let them have a say in what they'd like to keep. 4. Create a system for preservation. For fragile or valuable items, consider proper storage or even restoration. This ensures that they'll last for generations to come. Passing down sentimental items isn't just about giving your kids physical things. It's about sharing your family's story. When you take the time to provide context, those items become more than just objects. They become treasures that connect your children to their heritage and to you. Stay with me, because we're just getting into the heart of this discussion. The next points will dive even deeper into how to plan your legacy thoughtfully and avoid common pitfalls. Let's keep going. Number 7, your retirement savings. Here's a big one, something that so many retirees overlook. Never, and I mean never, compromise your retirement savings for the sake of your children. It's a noble thought to want to help your kids pay off their student loans, buy a house, or even cover their financial missteps. But here's the hard truth. If you dip too far into your retirement savings to support them, you risk jeopardizing your own financial security. Let me tell you why this is so important. Once you retire, you're living on a fixed income. That might be a combination of savings, Social Security, and perhaps a pension. But here's the thing, it's finite. Unlike your working years, you no longer have a steady paycheck to fall back on. If you give too much to your kids and run out of money, who's going to help you? Take this real-life example. Linda retired with what she thought was a comfortable nest egg. Her son lost his job, so she started helping him out by covering his mortgage payments. Then her daughter needed help starting a business, so Linda chipped in there too. At first, it seemed manageable, but after a few years, Linda realized she'd drained a significant portion of her savings. By the time she was in her late 70s, she was struggling to make ends meet, relying on her kids to help her. This is a situation you do not want to find yourself in. Supporting your kids at the expense of your own retirement can lead to stress, financial insecurity, and, ironically, place a bigger burden on your children later when they have to care for you financially. Here's how to avoid this pitfall. 1. Prioritize your retirement savings. Your first responsibility is to yourself. Make sure you have enough to cover your living expenses, health care, and unexpected costs before offering financial help to your children. 2. Set boundaries. If your kids ask for financial support, be honest about your limitations. Let them know you're prioritizing your retirement security so you won't become a financial burden to them in the future. 3. Offer guidance instead of cash. Instead of giving them money, help them learn how to budget, save, and manage their finances better. This way, you're empowering them to solve their problems without relying on you. 4. Create a backup plan. If you want to help your kids, consider creating a smaller fund specifically for that purpose, separate from your retirement savings. But once that fund is depleted, it's time to say no. At the end of the day, taking care of yourself first is the best way to take care of your kids. By ensuring your financial stability, you give them the freedom to focus on their own lives without worrying about supporting you down the road. Number 8. Outdated technology and tools. Let's talk about stuff. Specifically, outdated technology, tools, or equipment that you've been holding on to. You might think you're doing your kids a favor by passing down that perfectly good computer from 10 years ago, your old lawnmower, or even a box of random cables and gadgets. But here's the reality. What you see as useful, they might see as clutter. Here's an example. Tom, a retired engineer, had a garage filled with old tools, electronic parts, and equipment he'd collected over the years. When he downsized, he gave everything to his kids, assuming they'd find value in it. But to his kids, who didn't share his hobby of tinkering with electronics, it was just a mountain of junk they didn't know how to use. Most of it ended up in the trash or donated to thrift stores. Tom's well-meaning gesture became more of a hassle than a gift. Here's why this matters. Your kids live in a different era. What might have been cutting-edge or useful during your time could be obsolete or irrelevant to them. And even if the items are still functional, they might not have the time, space, or interest to use them. Here's how you can approach this thoughtfully. 1. Declutter before you downsize. Go through your belongings and decide what truly has value, not just sentimental value to you, but practical value to someone else. If something is outdated or no longer useful, consider donating or recycling it before passing it on to your kids. 2. Ask if they want it. Before assuming your kids will find something useful, ask them. You might discover that they'd rather have the space than the items you're offering. 3. Digitize where possible. If you're holding on to boxes of old photos, documents, or music collections, consider digitizing them. This makes it easier to preserve the memories without taking up physical space. 4. Pass down tools with purpose. If you have items that are genuinely valuable, like high-quality tools, antiques, or collectibles, explain their significance and make sure your kids know how to use or care for them. A great example is a woman named Maria, who had an old sewing machine she'd used for decades. Before giving it to her daughter, Maria took the time to teach her how to use it and shared the memories of all the things she'd created with it over the years. Her daughter didn't just inherit a sewing machine, she inherited a skill and a family tradition. The key here is intentionality. Instead of unloading your unused or outdated items onto your kids, take the time to figure out what will truly be helpful or meaningful to them. And for the things that aren't, let them go. Your kids will thank you for it. Number 9. Toxic family dynamics. This one might be the hardest to talk about, but it's also the most important. Never pass down unresolved toxic family dynamics to your children. Family conflict, lingering resentment, unresolved trauma, or unhealthy communication patterns can be the most damaging inheritance of all. Unlike money or possessions, emotional baggage doesn't go away. It gets carried forward, often growing worse with each generation if it's not addressed. Here's the truth. No family is perfect. Maybe there's been a rift between siblings, long-standing tension between you and one of your kids, or an unspoken family rule that keeps everyone walking on eggshells. If these dynamics go unaddressed, they'll linger long after you're gone, potentially tearing your family apart. Let me share a story. Lisa was part of a family where no one ever talked about their feelings. Her parents often swept disagreements under the rug, hoping they would just go away. But when her father passed away, unresolved conflicts between Lisa and her siblings bubbled to the surface. Small disputes over the inheritance turned into full-blown arguments, fueled by years of unspoken resentment and misunderstandings. The family stopped talking altogether, and what could have been a time to come together as a family became a permanent fracture. So how do you prevent toxic family dynamics from being your legacy? Here are some actionable steps. 1. Address conflicts now. If there are unresolved issues in your family, don't wait for them to magically disappear. Sit down and have open, honest conversations, even if they're uncomfortable. 2. Model healthy communication. Your children learn from how you handle conflict. Show them how to listen, apologize, and compromise, even if it's not easy. 3. Seek professional help if needed. Family therapy can be incredibly helpful for resolving deep-seated issues and improving communication. It's an investment in your family's future. 4. Leave a legacy of love and understanding. Consider writing a letter to your children that focuses on your hopes for their relationships with each other. Encourage them to support one another and stay united as a family after you're gone. Your goal is to leave behind a family that feels connected, not fractured. By addressing toxic dynamics now, you give your children the tools to build healthier, stronger relationships, not just with each other, but with their own families in the future. Conclusion: the legacy you leave behind. When you think about what you'll leave behind for your children, it's easy to focus on money, possessions, or traditions. But the most important thing you can leave them isn't something tangible. It's a sense of empowerment, love, and clarity. The truth is, your legacy is not about the things you give. It's about the foundation you build for your children to thrive on their own terms. Retirement is your time to reflect on the life you've built and the values you want to carry forward. It's a chance to shape your family's future thoughtfully, avoiding decisions that could create unnecessary burdens or conflict. By prioritizing your own well-being, addressing potential challenges head-on, and fostering open, honest communication, you can ensure that your legacy is one of unity, strength, and purpose. Remember, the greatest gift you can give your children isn't wealth or material possessions. It's the confidence and freedom to live their lives fully, on their own terms. As you step into retirement, embrace the opportunity to guide them with wisdom, love, and intention. Your legacy isn't just about what you leave, it's about how you make them feel and what you teach them about navigating life. Take this time to lead by example, make thoughtful choices, and pave the way for your family to flourish long after you've stepped into this new chapter. That is the kind of legacy that truly lasts,